If you've ever played the original Pokemon games, you have red, blue, and sometimes yellow, but it would also make you think, why didn't they ever make a Pokemon Pink? It seems like it would make the perfect sense. Red and blue were massive hits, and then you got yellow, which was focused on Pikachu, which was the main character in the TV show. But what about a game that was focused on a different popular Pokemon? Not one with a huge fan base, but what was also cute, especially among girls at that time. You got Jigglypuff or Clefairy, are the main two that you would think of. But here's the crazy part, Pokemon Pink actually was a real thing, at least for a little while, but it vanished without a word. This is a story of why, when, how, and what made Pokemon Pink disappear. Let's get into it. Let's go back to the late 90s. Pokemon Red and Green launched in Japan in 1996, followed by Blue. In the US, we got Pokemon Red and Blue in 98, and they were massive. Kids were trading Pokemon cards at school, watching the anime, and even battling on their Game Boys. Pokemon wasn't just a game, at the time it was a movement. And in 1999, Pokemon Yellow Special Pikachu Edition was released. This was a mix of red and blue, but with new colors and some anime-inspired changes. Your starter Pokemon was Pikachu, Team Rocket's Jesse and James appeared. It was legitimately the first Pokemon game to be tied into with the cartoon. But deep in the code of Pokemon Yellow, years later, something surprising was discovered. In 2020, when fans were digging into the Virtual Console version of Pokemon Yellow, a re-release on the Nintendo 3DS, they found something strange in the game's data files. Inside the game code, there was a label called Pocket Monsters Pink, a name that had never been used before in public. There it was, right next to Pocket Monsters Yellow. This was a major clue. It suggested that on one point, Nintendo or Game Freak planned to release a second version of Pokemon Yellow, and they were just going to call it Pokemon Pink. But see, it never came out. No screenshots, no announcement, just a name, hidden in the code. So basically, what was planned? Now, to understand why Pokemon Pink might have been planned, we may have to look at how Pokemon games were marketed. In the original Red and Blue, the two cover mascots were Charizard, a fire dragon, and Blastoise, a tank-like water turtle. These were powerful, intimidating Pokemon, and many thought that they were aimed more at boys. But Pokemon had a huge female fan base as well, and there were popular Pokemons that leaned more towards that audience, like Clefairy, who was originally supposed to be the series mascot before Pikachu, and Jigglypuff, who was already a fan favorite and appeared often in the anime. So what if Pokemon Pink was meant to be the version of Yellow, but focused on a different character, like Clefairy or Jigglypuff? There's even more evidence. In early Pokemon manga, the female main character used a Clefairy. In the early anime episode, Jigglypuff had a major role and was a recurring character, so both were very possible picks. Most people believe that Pokemon Pink would have came out around the same time as Yellow, probably in 99 or even 2000. It might have been a version with a different Pokemon you can catch, maybe even a different starter and a pink colored cartridge to go with it, but it never happened. Well, why? There's a few possible reasons that we think maybe, but nothing for sure. Because basically Nintendo and Game Freak have never actually explained. One, because Pikachu was probably too popular, toys were everywhere, backpacks, lunchbox, cartoons, stickers, crayons, you name it, Pikachu was there. Now Clefairy and Jigglypuff were popular, but not Pikachu popular. And another reason is making a second version of Yellow might have meant new sprites, new scripting, new marketing, and with Gold and Silver already deep in development, maybe it just didn't make sense to split focus at that time. Also, it probably just didn't fit the plan. At the time, Pokemon games were usually released in pairs. Yellow was a one-off special edition. Maybe Pink was considered but dropped when they decided one version was enough. And also, probably because of the Game Boy's limits. The Game Boy only had so much memory. Adding another big game might have pushed it too far, or required more expensive cartridges. By then, Nintendo was already thinking ahead to the Game Boy Advance. See, and here's the wild thing, Pokemon Pink still lives in its fans. People have made fan versions. Others wonder if it could someday be a remake or a reimagining, maybe as part of a collection or an anniversary drop. And in today's world of remakes and digital releases, it's not truly impossible. If Nintendo really wanted to, they could build a modern Pink version around Jigglypuff, Clefairy, or even a new fairy-type Pokemon star. So here's what we know as an overall. Pokemon Pink was supposed to release alongside Pokemon Yellow. It was most likely meant to feature Clefairy or Jigglypuff or any other pink Pokemon that was popular as ever as they were. It was hidden inside the code of Yellow, but it was just never released. And nobody really knows for sure why it was cancelled. But sometimes the most powerful things in gaming are the things that we didn't play, but the things that we almost got to play. Pokemon Pink is exactly that. It's a piece of lost history that we almost got and would have most likely loved. It's part of that big discussion of what ifs and what this franchise could have been. So next time you see Jigglypuff on your screen, just imagine Clefairy or Jigglypuff right by your side. And maybe we haven't seen the last of Pokemon Pink. We never know. Nintendo's weird. It'll come out at some point.